based off all the feedback that I've had, I don't think it will ever work for someone. So I really am confident that you guys have made the right choice here to have an individual tutor, right, to kind of help along. And then obviously we can stop and give clarity to things. And a huge benefit as well is, right, that a lot of what you're going to hear from me, especially in the earlier days of our course, is English. Of course, we're studying Spanish and we're practicing Spanish, but it's so helpful that the teacher would have English as the first language so that we can clarify everything very well. Okay, let's dive in. You guys ready to go? Me too. All right, today's lesson is very simple. It's focused on two things. It's greetings and gender, and then kind of working through the different sounds that the language has as far as having a different alphabet goes, right? So let's dive in. And this guide is available to you, as I mentioned, on your own time and on any device as well. And I really wanted to make it so that it's beautiful, especially on the phone. So because you're getting the instruction here, it really behooves you to go back and click through and visit that stuff just to keep your mind fresh on what we've been learning and all of that as well. So I'm excited for you to see how this is on the phone because it's super intuitive. It looks really nice, and it'll help us recap what we've learned when you have a chance to just pull it up while you're hanging out, waiting for a bus or anything like that. All right, to yourselves here, and there will be a lot of that where you're on mute and you're kind of just repeating to yourselves since it's a group class. Sometimes I'll call on you, but to yourselves, let's just hear your strongest hola. Hola. Obviously, that's hello. A couple things that we learn right out the gate here, something important is that H's are not pronounced right in Spanish. They're silent. That's why it's not hola, it's hola. And then another kind of cool thing is that if you did take away that H, O-L-A in itself, that's a word on its own. It's not relevant to what we're looking at here with greetings, but it's the word for wave, right? Wave, like a wave from the ocean. And so that's a cool thing to remember is that hola can be hello, and it can also be wave from the ocean. I still don't know if that means wave as in like a greeting as well, but that would be a cool way to bridge the gap between the two. To those who know Puerto Vallarta, if you've been in the romantic zone, that area is also called Olas Altas. Everybody say Olas Altas. Olas Altas. Alta or alto is tall. And so ola alta or olas altas would be tall waves. So keep an eye out for that if you're in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, olas altas. These next three here are going to be good morning, good afternoon, and good night, which also covers good evening, right? The reason that I've left this red spot blank here is because that's an important and critical piece to our dialogue today surrounding gender. Because everything in Spanish has a gender, at least all nouns, people, places, and things, right? Verbs are sort of in their own category. They're not really influenced by gender, but each noun has a gender. I'll give you an example. The word for the table would be la mesa. We'll understand a bit better about what the la is there, but mesa, a table, is a feminine thing. Then if you think of a word like the book, it's not la libro, the word is libro for book, but it's el libro, and that's a masculine word. So that's a big adjustment for us because we don't really have gender like that built into the English language. So you'll have to kind of keep that in mind that gender influences so many things. And if a word has a gender, then the adjective to describe that word has to match that gender. So in our circumstance here of, for instance, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to say it yet, but good morning, the good part has to match the gender of the word dias. That's an important note, really. The literal translation of good morning in Spanish is more so good days, or really literally goods days. And the same thing would be true, for instance, with like Buenos Aires in Argentina. The literal translation of Buenos Aires exactly would be goods heirs. Goods heirs, right? Anyway, so the gender has to match. That's going to be a bulk of our focus today. But let's move down, skip past those because we'll revisit them on the next screen, starting on the next screen. And I just want everybody to yourself there. Adios. Give us your strongest adios. Adios. We know that one. That's goodbye, right? Some of this stuff is just like integrated into our culture. Like we know some words in Spanish already. Dios without the A, that's the word for God. Dios. So you could probably make the argument that adios is like to God, right? We say something like that, go with God. So I don't know why, but goodbye has relationships to the Almighty. And then the last one we'll give you here, buen dia. Everybody say buen dia. Buen dia. Now, the reason that that's at the bottom is because this means good day. And it's oftentimes used to say goodbye to someone, the same way that we might say, have a good day or good day to you, sir, right? So, buen dia is a way to say goodbye. I will mention, though, that people do say that as well as a greeting, too. So, it's kind of interchangeable. But let's move on to the next here. Now, this is the quiz that I give all my students. And I will say, most times, because we're going to look at the three, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, most times people are just stabbing in the dark at the right answer here. We will get to a place in about 10 minutes where we really more fully understand this concept. So this screen is just more so for fun to take a stab at it. I'm just going to call on a random person here. Shell, what do you think is the answer here? Please don't be afraid to fail because most people do. Is it
A?
Buenos? Sorry, go ahead.
The letter A?
This is the letter A. Okay, Buenos dias. All right, Brett, what do you think? Do you agree with her or do you think it's the other one, the O? Shell, you can go back on mute.
I will go with the opposite. I'll guess O. I don't know.
You're gonna go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we don't know yet. By the end of today, we will know well why. But the correct answer is with an O. So go ahead, everybody back on mute and repeat to yourself, Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Remember, the literal is good days, but this is how you say good morning in Spanish. Buenos dias. Notice something about the guide. If I go to try to click on the A, it won't advance me along to the next screen. So that's a really cool thing about the guide is that if you click the wrong answer, that's how you know it's wrong, is that it didn't advance to the next screen. So we click O here to say that it's Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Okay, Carrie, come on for good afternoon. Take a stab at it. We're just having fun. What do you think? Is it buenas tardes or buenos tardes? Maybe Carrie's not still with us. I don't know. I actually can't see anybody any longer, so I don't know who's
I'm
with
here.
us. And okay, cool. What do you think, Carrie?
I didn't hit the button. Sorry. I
Yeah,
think it's O.
you think it's
Bueno.
O? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I
And
don't.
then and Christopher, what do you think?
I think it's O.
Do you think it's O? Cool. We're wrong. Buzzer. Again, just for fun, right? And we will understand better, but it's actually buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. I'll tell you guys a little secret of mine. I always do the first class in a private lesson for free because I know that just within 15 minutes people are going to know that like they need Spanish instruction and it's got like probably an 85-90% conversion rate to committing to the course because of these screens here, right? So we know that a lot of people are lost on this concept. And again, we'll shed more light here in the next coming screens. But the correct answer here for good afternoon is buenas tardes with an A. Everybody to yourself say buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Cool, let's advance along. The next one is going to be good evening, but more literally good night. I'll reference here that buenas noches is something that you would say as a hello and a goodbye. In English, we don't say good night to say hello to someone, right? We might say good evening. But in Spanish, buenas noches, even though it literally does mean good nights, right? So the word noche is night. That's a greeting and a way to say goodbye to someone. And I think I just gave it away here. This one is with an A, so it's buenas noches. Let's go ahead and say buenas noches. Why? Okay, so this is related to the gender conversation that we were having. The word day from buenos dias is a masculine word, el dia. And as a result, the description of that day as good carries an O. We want to make the association of O's being generally masculine and A's being generally feminine, right? An afternoon, la tarde, is a feminine thing. So it will always be that way. These are not interchangeable, right? It's la tarde, that's the afternoon. And as a result, the gender matches it when we say buenas tardes. And then buenas noches, the night is also feminine. So that's la noche. And as a result, it's buenas noches. Sometimes people are, well, we got a little clarity here on this screen, but there's still questions. And I promise that in the next couple screens, it will clarify itself very well. I wanted to make a note, just because it popped into my mind, that the word tarde also means late. Tarde, late. When you revisit this video, if you do, on the guide, we'll talk about that. That's something that will be in the notes, right, below the video. So that's the extra stuff that we were talking about that kind of pops in that might not be as clear just from the guide screen itself, right? Great. Okay, cool. The first part of talking about the gender here is what we just referenced, is that if something is feminine, let's say 95% of the time, that if it ends with an A, it's feminine. And 95% of the time, if it ends with an O, it's masculine. There's 5% that are the rule breakers. And how unfair, because the first thing that we started with, el dia, is a rule breaker. It's part of the 5%. But generally, of course, you would always want to err on the side of the 95%. So when you see a word that ends in A and it's a noun, not a verb, right? Let's assume that it's going to be feminine, because that's the best thing that we can do. The rule breakers are just words that we have to memorize, that they're one-off words. But we want to train our brain rules to help guide us through Spanish, and this is one of the primary ones. Now, between tarde and noche from the screen before, afternoon and night, there are some nouns that don't end in A or O. So the same thing applies with those. You would just over time have to remember the gender of them, okay? But let's take a look at some examples of how this rule set plays out, okay? This is not a vocab screen here. There's 4 words for us to learn. This is more to emphasize the point that I just made, is that when you see that a word ends in the letter A, because we're working on the 95%, not the 5%, that assumption is then that that is a feminine word. And feminine words, when you say, for instance, this first one is the coast, the word the could either be el for masculine or la for feminine. And in this case, because it's feminine, it's la costa. Everybody to yourself say la costa. La costa. The next one here is the word for the orange, as in the fruit. Let's notice that the J in Spanish has taken over the H sound. So this word is pronounced la naranja. Everybody try la naranja. If you took away the la, it wouldn't be the orange anymore. That would just be the color orange, naranja, right? So we've got la costa, la naranja. Again, not a vocab exercise, more so making that association. Oh, the word ends in A, it must be feminine. As a result, it's la, 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 la. Everybody say la, 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 la. And the next one here is one that we all know, la papaya. La papaya. Bent can you come off of mute and say la papaya? La papaya.
La papaya.
Yeah, good. Excellent. That sounds good. Have you had a papaya, Bent?
No.
No, they're not native to the Springfield area of Illinois, right? We have much more of these big fruits that are really juicy down in the tropics, right? Down like in Mexico. But yeah, great job. La papaya ends in A, it's feminine. Then the next one, guys, la computadora. La computadora. Brad, come off mute and give us la computadora.
La computadora.
Yeah, pretty close. And again, with the group here, the goal is really just to try and make it like mine. So, Brad, let's try it one more time. La computadora.
La computadora.
Sounds good. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but O's in Spanish are almost always like a Minnesotan. So it's O. For instance, the word doctor is spelled exactly the same, but the pronunciation of it would be doctor. Doctor, right? So la computadora is the word for the computer. Again, these aren't words that I would choose to teach you in this first lesson. This is to re-emphasize that rule that it ends in A and therefore it's feminine. Then we have the masculine. So this is where we're looking for O's, right? The first one is the wind. The wind. El viento. El viento is the wind. Ends in O, it's masculine, therefore it's el viento, the wind. As an example, when you say, I'm from the windy city, because I am from Chicago, that's actually said, I am from the city of the winds. So I'll say that for you here. Yo soy, I am de la ciudad de vientos. Yo soy de la ciudad de vientos. We're definitely not expecting you to be at a level where you would understand that quite yet, right? We'll get there in our journey. But yo soy de la ciudad de vientos. I'm from the city of the winds. The next one is el plátano. El plátano. Brett, can you give us el plátano?
El plátano.
Yeah, good. Let's see the word plantain here, because this is a way to say the banana, right? El plátano is the banana. I didn't actually know this until I had moved to Mexico, but there is another word for banana that is literally just banana, and it's spelled the same. The pronunciation is just a little bit different because it's banana. And somebody come off mute, doesn't matter who. The word banana, is that feminine or masculine?
Feminine.
Good. Perfect. Yes, because it ends in A. So interesting that banana has two words, and one of them is masculine and one of them is feminine. Something fun, just a little tangent, is that this doesn't really mean the plantain, it means the banana, but a plantain is called a plátano macho. Plátano macho. And you'll see those very, very often, like in a little store in Mexico, because they love to chop up a plantain and fry it up in the skillet. And then also there's these bags that look like chips, but it's like a long strip of a fried plantain, right? And that's just something that people snack on. You can get either salty or sweet as well. Now, the word for that kind of bridges our gap on the gender understanding as well. So those are called plátano frito, or if it's plural, plátanos fritos. Everybody to yourself there, say plátanos fritos, F-R-I-T-O. So if you're talking French fries in Spanish, I'm curious, does anybody want to come off mute? Have you ever seen how to say French fries in Spanish? Ever ordered it off a menu? We say papas fritas. I only ask that because a lot of times people who have visited Mexico, they've been in a restaurant, they know that papas fritas is It's basically fried potatoes, right? Papas fritas. Notice that papas is feminine, so fritas is also feminine, just like what our dialogue about buenos dias, buenas tardes, that type of thing. And then these fried plantains that I'm talking about, those are plátanos fritos, because the fried word has to match the gender of the word that it's describing. So one more on that would be fried chicken. We'd say pollo frito. Pollo frito is the word for fried chicken. I'm really trying to figure out here. I have like no options to pull back that video view window of you guys that I can see here. I'd like to, so maybe we'll try for that the next time around. But then also there's normally a chat here that I can type things into, and unfortunately I don't see that either. Here we go. Yeah, good. Okay, what are we seeing now? Are you guys just all seeing each other? Okay.
We see the same thing you do. You're working from a Chromebook, right?
No, but it is a laptop. It's not a Chromebook per se. Oh, maybe so. It's
if you
yeah.
download the Zoom app versus doing it in the tab, it's easier to switch between that stuff. But you got the right thing. If you go back to the tab, you'll see us all.
Okay, cool. So for now, and I did download that, but since I've taught a group class before this way, I just figured for the first one to avoid confusion, I would try it the way I know, but maybe I'll do a little education of myself outside of class to get to that point. But anyway, I put in the chat, pollo frito, that's fried chicken, right? And again, these notes, I'll go back, watch these videos, jot down the notes, and then when we have the archived video page available, that will allow everybody to see this stuff there as well. But I'll try to do a good job of populating the chat too. Anyway, the next word on our list here is the government. That would be el gobierno. El gobierno. Try that one, guys. El gobierno. The government. And then the last one here is el camino. El camino. Now, el camino is something we've seen, whether it was the car or a street in San Diego, right? Camino de San Padre or something like that. This word means the way, the walk, or the path, right? Are you guys still seeing the guide page here?
Yep.
Okay, great. Awesome. So again, not a vocab exercise. Glad that we picked up some stuff, but if you see a word that ends in O, we're going to assume that it's masculine, and we'll work from there. We know that it would be el. And if it's feminine, it ends in A, then it's la. We're going to see in a couple screens some of the rule breakers as well. This one is an easy thing to pick up. If a word ends in ion, it is feminine, and it's really easy to translate. Let's take a look at some examples here. For instance, I bet you guys could tell me what these words would be in English, right? The revolution, the evolution, the creation. And then the last one is a little different because it's the benediction, but that's also the way that we say it, the blessing, right? La bendición. I'll say these words so we can practice hearing it, which is just as important, right? We need to practice hearing Spanish as much as we're reading it from the guide or speaking it out loud. We want those three things to be in balance. So, la revolución, la evolución, la creación, la bendición. We talk about this as low-hanging fruit with the language because there are times where you'll be helped out by already having a frame of reference for a word in English and how it works in Spanish. And this is definitely a testament to that. So you could easily figure out what these mean. Say to yourself there, la revolución, la revolución. When you see these accents in Spanish, because we don't really have accents like that in English, I always tell my students, you see the accent, let's do a shoulder shrug when we arrive at that letter to give it a little added pop. So this one is la revolución, la evolución. Let's do that for the entire course. Give that accented pop to any time that we see an accent to know where the emphasis is, right? I remember Mike Myers saying you put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, right? So that's a great rule to remember. If it ends in ION like that, then it's probably a cousin to its English word. Why did I put la bendición on here? Because this word is actually way more common in Latin America probably than it is here. I'll give you an example. So if you have a newborn baby and you're in line at the grocery store and there's an 85-year-old grandmother type woman behind you, she may put her hand on the child and give it her bendición, her blessing. People be going around Latin America blessing each other way more than we do here, and I think that's a really wonderful and cool thing. But bendición is more common of a word than you would think, since it does mean the benediction, but it's being used as the blessing in that circumstance. Okay, let's take a look at some rule breakers here as well, okay? So these are the ones where they're in the 5%. So we would never assume that a word is in the 5%. That's why these are just one-off memory style words that you have to kind of just know over time, right? So let's try the first one, which is the word for the hand. Everybody put up your hand and say la mano. La mano. The hand. It's interesting because we hear sometimes, I want to talk to you mano a mano, right? That's not man to man. That would be if you and I were talking hand to hand together, right? La mano, the hand. Then la radio, la radio. Try that, la radio. That's the radio, obviously. And notice it ends in O, but since it's a rule breaker, not a rule follower, the gender of it is feminine, right? La radio. You hear me curling my R's. We'll see more of this in this same module here, just coming up pretty quick. But the double R in Spanish is the one that you really want to focus on curling. But if a word starts with R, then you can feel free to embellish it as much as possible. By the way, most English speakers don't have that ability right away. It's something that you would maybe practice over time to get to that. Try that on your own right now. Don't be afraid to fail. That's our job right now, is just to try, fail, pick ourselves back up and try again, right? It's very humbling to learn a new language because essentially you're reducing yourself back to the level of a child, right? But that's an exciting thing to be like, gosh, I don't know this and I'm struggling with the pronunciation, but over time, just as a child does, we'll get better and better with it. The next word here is el alma. El alma. That's the soul. The soul. Like you've got a good soul. So notice ends in A and it's masculine, el alma. There's also a lot of people in Latin America, women that have the name Alma. So keep your ear out for an alma. You might meet somebody and be like, oh, I like your name. It's very soulful. The el dia. How wild that we started with a gender breaker. Some of my students, Steve and Chris, they call it gender benders. But that's why it was buenos dias, remember, because it's masculine, el dia. Then el agua. Everybody say to yourself, el agua. El agua. Bent, can you come off mute again and say el agua?
El agua.
Yeah, good. Bent, have you ever heard that before as water, agua?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Cool. So that's a gender bender, a rule breaker, ends in A, but it's a masculine word. And then the last one, el planeta, the planet, right? In red here, what does that say? That says y más. When you see a Y just on its own, that's the word and it's pronounced E. So everybody try it on your own, y más, meaning to say these are not the only words that do this. These are just examples of those words, right? Cool. Let's take a look at the next screen. A lot of people think that a cat, the only word for cat is gato, right? We've probably heard that even if we're not speaking a lot of Spanish, that gato is cat. And most people don't realize that there are gatas. La gata would be the female cat. So gender works in this way where we apply it to whether or not a thing is actually masculine or feminine. So there's el gato, the male cat, and la gata. Let's say right off the bat, because this is true, the Spanish language tends to default to the masculine. So if you have a group of cats, we would almost always say los gatos to describe them because that's how the language works. However, I will say in 2026, we don't have to follow those rules. Let's evolve. In fact, this guide that you're seeing, I tried to actually build it with more of a feminine intention because I think that's cool to try and think about balancing that out. How does language affect culture and vice versa? And how can we be a step ahead of those evolutions? So la gata, the female cat. Perro, el perro, the dog, and then la perra. Why would that be a bad word? Because Bent's on the call, I don't want to say it. Normally I'd shout it out loud here. But la perra, you can maybe imagine, right? How we use female dog in our language to communicate a different type of idea. La perra. So have yourself a little laugh on La Perra and be very careful shouting that out in the streets if you're visiting Latin America because it could hit somebody just the wrong way, right? Bad word, La Perra. Sorry, Brett, for teaching a bad word to Bent. I was really only just trying to talk about dogs here, but can't take away the nature of that, right?
You're all good.
Is he ready for that, or am I right to
No, you're fine. You're fine. So you
okay,
turned it
fine.
out for me.
Okay. Kirk, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're saying literally la perra is like the B word in English?
Yes.
You're saying that. Okay.
I'm saying that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you just heard me shout it a bunch of times too, but yeah, since I got the permission, or not even the permission, but we know Ben's heard those words before. We're not going to do a lot of swearing in this course, but la perra certainly means the bitch, right? And perra would be bitch. In fact, my girlfriend and I were building a brand of empowered Latinas through English classes, and it's actually one word in Spanish and one word in English. It's perra, please, right? Which would be like, bitch, please. La perra is definitely the B word. Okay, moving on from that though, El Nino and La Nina, that's something we've seen before, right? From the storm systems. El Nino means the little boy, and La Nina means the little girl. Let's put something in the chat here. This is not son or daughter. Those would be hijo and hija, right? And that's in the chat. So those are son and daughter. Whoa, what happened there? That's wild. Okay, cool. So El Nino, La Nina, you can see they're specific to the gender. There are a couple of things to address with this. Sometimes it happens that the word doesn't change the letter at the end. A really good example is very applicable to me. The word poet is poeta, poeta, but there is no such thing as a poeto. So in that circumstance, you're either el poeta or la poeta. So if someone was talking about me, they'd say, oh, el poeta, right? So keep that in mind that there's a couple times where that word doesn't get changed, right? Another example of that would be the word for turtle, which is tortuga. That's always tortuga. There is no such thing as a tortugo. So we would say either la tortuga or el tortuga. And it really takes a special person to dive into whether or not a turtle is a female or a male. You got to do some searching for sure. But anyway, tortuga is the word. One thing I want to mention, normally I don't do it right in this particular type of dialogue, but remember as well that we are a part of the evolution of language, that it never stays stationary, that new words are constantly being introduced, or two languages like how Mexico and the United States are so close. That means that the evolution of those languages will become maybe something more mixed because of the proximity, whereas the Spanish way down in Santiago, Chile, might not have the same type of influence, English influence that this new breed of language that's shared between Mexico, United States, and Canada is having, right? And we are a part of that. We are the living part of that. So today, Tortugo is not a word, but we've already spoken it into existence, and it wouldn't be too difficult for someone to know what we were talking about. And some people might be like, no, that's not right, Tortugo. And other people will be like, I like that, Tortugo. Yeah, a male turtle, right? So be confident and proud, and let's have fun with the fact that we are on the cutting edge of the evolution of a language. I can tell you just a fun thing related to that. My kids, their bilingualism is so awesome. It's so much of a privilege as a father to be witness to. My daughter said, "Me duele mi legla." She was saying, "My leg hurts," but the word for leg in Spanish is pierna, pierna. So when she said legla, and she didn't do this consciously, she was literally making a Spanglish word that was the mix of leg and pierna. And now in our house, we will never again call it a leg or a pierna. We will only from now on call it a legla. Daddy, me duele mi legla. And those are great moments to have a big laugh with the kids. And it's really cool because they're young, they're 4 and 5, but they understand why that's funny because they can differentiate between the two languages. But again, it's cool that it came about accidentally. That shows us that the languages are evolving, and they probably will be a part of that. And they're on the front lines of what it looks like to be half Mexican, half American, and blending the languages in that way. Isn't that cool? All right, let's see. Okay, we got Carrie. Carrie, can you come on here off mute and tell us what you think the right answer here would be based off of what we've learned? Would it be la persona es buena or la persona es bueno?
Oh.
You think it's a no?
Yeah, no, I'm scared.
It's okay to be scared. It's also okay to fail at it. I'm glad that you took a confident stab. The reason that it's not O, that it's A, is because we start back with that original formula. We look at the word persona. We see that it ends in A. Because it ends in A, we're assuming because 95% of the time those words that end in A are feminine, then it is feminine. And we know that because we see la persona, right? La persona. That's a feminine word, the person, right? And as a result of being feminine, we stick to the A theme. So the right answer here is la persona es buena. La persona es buena. Thank you for coming on and helping us to solidify and clarify that truth. Also, this does not matter about who you're talking about as a person. So we say, Brad es una buena persona. So even though Brad is a man, the word person means that we're saying he's a good person. That word person being feminine is what influences our election to say buena. Carrie, come back on. Does that make sense? Or can I clarify it?
No, that does.
Cool. Okay, good. Everybody say la persona es buena to yourself there. La persona es buena. The person is good, right? The person is good. These classes are meant to be 45 minutes, guys. We're just a little over because we spent a little time socializing and getting acclimated here, but we'll be done within the next 5 minutes here. The next one is the stomach is full. The stomach is full. Let's see. Brad, come on, tell us. El estómago, just tell us if it's an A or an O, because it's a lot to ask to pronounce all of this in lesson 1, but what's the right answer here?
O.
O. And do you feel confident in the 100%ness of that?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Because you are right. El estómago está lleno. That's kind of a complicated phrase for lesson 1 here. Stomach and full. But el estómago está lleno would be the stomach is full. El estómago está lleno. remember, and I didn't do it. I feel ashamed of myself. Boom. But we want to do the shoulder shrug every time we see an accent. El estómago está lleno. Lleno. You see that double L there. We're going to talk about that in just a second, as how that double L makes more of a Y sound than anything. Okay. Cool. Here's the alphabet differences. The double R we talked about. The mother of my children, her name is Montserrat. Right. So when I was courting her, when we very first started dating, I would lay in bed at night and I would just say Montserrat, 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 so that I would never insult the family in asking her father, I would love to marry your daughter Montserrat or Montserrat, right? If you don't have a double R curl, then it wasn't going to work, right? So that's what you guys want to do. I say make it a part of your toothbrush routine. And not to beat a dead dog here, but I think the best word to shout at yourself in the mirror there was that perra word, right? So just shout bitch at yourself in Spanish for 30 seconds after you brush your teeth, and we'll get that sound down. Does anybody feel confident enough in their double R to try that word perra and try it out? Or are we feeling... Who's that? Go for it. Sure, good. Perra. Yep. We got to keep practicing that, right? Because that's what's going to do the X factor of this course, which is to Latinize the sound of how we're speaking Spanish. So we're learning grammar and sentence structure and verbs and gender and all of that. But the X factor is, can you make it sound like an actual Spanish speaker would, right? So that double R pronunciation doesn't come naturally to most people that have been speaking English their whole life, but let's try to put it to practice, right? And work with it. You could choose Montserrat, you could choose perro, and there's many other words that'll come down the line that will fit the bill for that as well. Mañana, this is called an ñ. It is a letter of the alphabet in Spanish. Ñ. Mañana, most of us know. Somebody come off mute and tell us what mañana means.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, good. Does anybody know the other meaning of mañana? The other meaning of mañana is morning. This is literally the word for morning. So the way that we say tomorrow in the morning is mañana en la mañana. Try that to yourself. Mañana en la mañana. Mañana en la mañana. Brad, I knew you were kind of helping with the Zoom stuff before, but what happens if I'm doing this screen share and somebody else joins the lesson? Will I see that, or will I have to go back to the other tab to let them in?
You have to go back to that tab to let them in.
Oh, okay. See, that's the part I don't like, is I would never know then if someone was joining us. But if I have this window open down here, would that allow me to maybe see if somebody else joined?
I think you have to use the app.
Okay.
Instead of the browser.
Yeah, we'll try to get better at that. I know that last time when I had, everybody was in a strip of videos on the side while we were going through the guide, and then I was alerted of all the things, but now I don't see it that way.
You were using the app.
Oh, maybe that's true. I could be right. Yeah. Cool. Okay, guys, let's try the double L here, making a sound as a Y. So that would be Vallarta. Everybody say Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta. We saw that already with the lleno, full. Puerto Vallarta. So it's always got a y sound when you see a double L. One L on its own just sounds like an L, right? So keep that in mind. And then we talked about the H's being silent. This first word a lot of people know, maybe some won't, and that's okay. But huevo, does anybody want to come off mute and tell us what a huevo is?
Egg,
yeah, great. It's egg. Huevo, hueso, these all make the same sound. Hueso is bone, like a bone in your body, hueso. And then hueco is like a tiny little gap or a hole. Again, this is not a vocab screen. It's just to emphasize that the H is silent. So say to yourself, huevo, hueso, hueco. And you've got egg, bone, gap, right? And then the J we talked about is having an H sound. This first word is for ham. Everybody try it. Jamon. Jamon. That's ham. Jamon. Shell, come on and tell us ham. Jamon.
Jamon.
Jamon. Yeah, perfect. And then the next one, guys, actually, I want to skip that one. Let's go to the third one, which is joyería. That would be jewelry. Joyería, jewelry. Joyería. Joyería with an accent. And then I didn't do that either for the jamón. I got to get back into the groove of doing the shoulder shrug. Jamón. Joyería. And then the middle word is by far my most favorite word in Spanish. I'm not going to tell you yet what it means. I want you to hear it. And then jump off of mute if you think you know what it might mean just based off the sound. Jonrón. 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 Anybody want to take a stab at it? Jonrón.
Home run?
Yeah, that's right. It is home run. The reason I love it so much is because it's literally a word that was invented not to share the literal meaning of like how we have home and run. Those are words. This was just made to replicate the sound. So jonrón is a home run, as in baseball. And I feel like you guys hit a home run today by being on the class with us here. I'm really proud of everybody. Let's take a second to kind of go through individually. What did you guys think? Let's start with you, Brad and Christopher. How did you feel about what you saw here today?
Good introduction.
Yeah, good. Did you already know some of that stuff, or did we pick up a lot of new info today?
I am one of the I use the dirty word Duolingo users.
Yeah.
So I've had a little practice in the last few days.
Oh,
Just
good. Yeah.
Familiar with it all and not feel uncomfortable with pronunciation and gender identification in vocabulary.
Sure. Why don't you give us, before we get you back on mute, la persona es buena.
Las personas es buena.
Yeah, la persona es buena. Good. Yeah, perfect. This should give you a chance to definitely, and you want to have, I teach an English class like this too. It's a pretty big class and don't have the same opportunity to like call on people. They all have to be on mute, but you want to get in the habit of repeating out loud to yourself, opening the mouth, practicing speaking while we're on this journey together. Brad, give us la persona es buena as well one more time.
La persona es buena.
Yeah, good. Okay, it's great to see you on here. You can go back on mute. We'll be done in just a second here. Carrie, what did you think?
It was good. Yeah.
Good. Did you know any of this stuff, or is it a fresh start for you?
No, I just know some silly little slang, and I don't know any of this, so this is good.
Yeah. You know what, Carrie? I recognize you, even though I can honestly say that that doesn't happen to me often because of just the sheer volume of people that I've met in the White Journey.
Well, you met under really a crazy circumstance, so you know.
Yeah, it's wild. But thanks for joining us. Right? Give us la persona es buena.
El persona. Say it again.
Let's break it down into two.
Yeah.
La persona
yeah.
es buena.
Es buena.
La persona es buena.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, good.
Thank
okay.
You.
Yeah, thank you. You can go back on mute. We'll be done in a second here. Shelly, you still with us there? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. What did you think, Shelly?
I thought it was good. I've been trying to learn Spanish for 40 years and, taking checked out stuff out of the library and books and everything, and I've never followed through. So I'm hoping to follow through and actually learn something. So a lot of it was repeat, but not everything. And it was, I feel like I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah, sure. And we talked about how some of that random knowledge kind of filtered its way in today as well. So I hope that everybody picked up some interesting and fun stuff too. But I'm going to make sure that Amy is really on top of you, okay? So if you're texting with Amy, I'm going to tell her, don't text her in English. Okay? Text her in Spanish. Yeah. That's actually a good point. You can go on mute again, Shelly. But, we talked about how the J makes the H sound. If you're texting ha to someone, you wouldn't use H-A in Spanish. You would say J-A, because that would make the same sound, ha, right? Isn't that cool? So if you're texting any Hispanic friend, then we go ha. Shelly, come back off mute one more time and give us la persona es buena.
La persona es buena.
Yeah, good, excellent, great to see you. And then my boys from Springfield, Illinois, Brett and Bent, what did we think?
I loved it, man. I thought it was a great intro. I had Spanish in high school, and I remembered a little bit of it, but with Bentley just starting off too, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. Brett, I feel like high school, like people on this call looking at you might think that was only like 7 years ago, but you got some years under you, don't you? How old are you?
Man, I'm like 40. I'll be 47 in a couple months.
I love it. Ben, how old are you?
12.
12. Did you like the class today?
Yeah.
Good. Can I hear your la persona es buena?
La persona es buena.
Ooh, he's already got that good flow, right? It sounded good. But let's hear it from you too. La persona es buena.
La persona es buena.
Yeah, excellent. Good, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. Again, so the concept here, and I feel like you got a good sense of where we're headed today. Class 2 is tomorrow night, same time, also offered again on Thursday night, and then again Saturday at 11 o'clock Eastern, so 10 o'clock Central, and moving on down. That's a 90-minute course because it would cover this lesson and Class 2 as well. So multiple options to attend. Feel free again to just continue this week as a trial. I don't know if you've seen that, but if you do decide that you want to commit to this course, then it's $300, and that's going to be all 8 weeks with 16 classes, right? So twice a week for essentially 2 months, guys. But I'm really excited for you guys to be a part of this journey, and feel free at any time if you need clarification on anything logistically or about what we covered content-wise. That's another helpful thing as well, is that I'm here and available for that as well. This one we'll do a group shout at the end of every class. So everybody come off of mute, and I want you to shout, Buenas noches!
Buenas
noches.
They're perfect. Cool. Feminine, right? Buenas noches. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in class 2, okay?
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Thanks.